Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's not Jatindra here. It's Samaneri Jayasara. Hope you can hear me. I'm just doing the session today because Jatindra, unfortunately, is somewhat under the weather, and so I offered, or she asked also if I'd be willing to do it today. So sending best wishes and apologies from her. And she'll do the next session in a few weeks. We'll let you know on the community notice and obviously on my channel. So apologies if you were looking forward to hearing her wonderful wisdom, but she will return. So I just have to set up myself. Is all okay in terms of sound and visual for everyone out there? I don't think I'm speaking to myself. Yes, thanks, Jim. Okay. Okay, so here we are again, and an opportunity to connect. And someone said, sit in stillness together, with a few pointers to help us do that. So I haven't really thought about anything in particular. I generally never do. So we'll just see what comes. And so Marion, you missed about what? So Jatindra is just not well today, so she's not taking the session. I volunteered to do the session for her. Okay. She needs a rest. She needs to rest. She's been doing a lot of Dharma work around the place. So, and there's a lot of stuff going around at the moment. I heard in Victoria that the flu's gone, not just the bird flu, the human flu's gone through the population there. So I don't think she's got the flu, but it's good to just to look after yourselves, everybody, and to know when to rise above things and when to just rest and step back. So that's all part of the learning, isn't it? So anyway, in the spirit of Jatindra, let us just come together. I'm just going to turn the chat off for the meditation, and we'll see what comes. Okay. So please, everyone, I think a notification should have been sent out. Just on that note, though, we've noticed that perhaps some of the notifications aren't going out. I don't know how YouTube figured this thing out, but if you're not getting notifications, maybe just refresh that button, see what happens. Anyway, so please come together in whatever place, space that you are now. And it's an opportunity just to put everything down. Physically, verbally, and eventually even mentally too. So this is why stopping and physically sitting still is such an important part of the practice. We call it a formal meditation practice. And of course, one can do this in movement as well, but particularly when we're beginning the practice or wanting to deepen the practice, sitting still is a real aid, a real help to do that. So if you can keep your body upright and physically still for this short meditation, that will be of great help And you can investigate and see that, how it makes such a difference. And the visual faculty is also kept still. So whether you do that simply by gazing gently, lightly at one point, or by closing your eyes, it's the same thing, just to keep the inner stillness at the eye level. And you notice that when there's a lot of thinking, your eyeballs will be moving, darting around in your head. So you can notice that as a signal that you're engaged in thinking. And just let it go, wake up. And start by connecting with your breath, again, as a skillful means, as an aid. Taking a few deep conscious breaths. To draw in the energy and to ground the energy. Feel the breath entering into the body. If you can breathe deeply from the belly, and as the breath enters into the body, just feel it moving through all the various parts of the body, from the lungs all the way down to the tips of the toes. Refreshing, replenishing, regenerating your whole body. And this simple act of just stopping, sitting still, and consciously breathing notice how good that feels. Just to breathe out and stop. Even if the thoughts are still darting through the mind, it doesn't matter. Just be patient in meditation. Be compassionate to whatever arises. And you know with wisdom, it will pass. So there's nothing to worry about, nothing to hold on to. Just breathe naturally now. and watch everything come and go. Without getting involved in anything. The sounds come and go. The thoughts come and go. The sensations in the body come and go. The breath comes and goes. The moods, the emotions come and go. The memories come and go. Learn to recognize the truth of impermanence. Don't just get swept away, deluded by all of these appearances. Simply watch. Unmoved, unidentified, but not cut off or disassociated. Keep your heart open. So we're not judging anything as good or bad, right or wrong, liking or disliking. It's simply recognizing the nature of this phenomenal world. Without getting into conflict with any of it. So it's often spoken about as be the Buddha, knowing the Dharma, and the Dharmas in this case. So that simply means be the one who is awake, the Buddha, knowing the Dharma, the truth of the way things are. There is the truth of the phenomenal world, the conditioned world, in that everything that arises ceases or passes away. And when you know that, not just intellectually, but at the deepest level, seeing into the truth of this, then it slowly, slowly leads you, or maybe even instantly for a moment, reveals the truth of the unconditioned. The timeless Dharma, the birthless Dharma, the deathless Dharma. So be the Buddha, knowing the Dharma. And the Dharma, the truth of the way things are, is not in the future. It's not in the past. And it's not even in the present as a concept we form in our minds. It's simply now, here and now. Not inside, not outside. Free from boundaries. Free from duality. Of concepts. And of words. So simply relax and rest into your own awareness, this knowing nature. Let go of the doer, the striver, the achiever, and the thinker. And let your own awareness reveal deeper and deeper layers of the truth. And give up that idea that you're going to figure it all out. Just rest in not knowing. And when that is perfected, knowing will arise by itself. So as we come to the end of this meditation, just start to gather a more global sense of the space you're in, the sounds around you, and your body. And just notice how it feels. Whatever shifts have taken place from when you started the meditation to how you feel now. Just this simple act of sitting still, of noticing, of bare awareness. And the profound and transformative effects something as simple as that can have on our being, on our experience. And we take these same principles into our daily life as we're walking, as we're talking, doing our work, driving. Just watch everything unfold like a dream, like a movie. Keeping the heart open and aware. So if you need to take a few stretches, have a drink before we engage in the questions, please do so, and I'll put the chat back on. And as you can see, it's a bit of a grey day out there, but no rain, just cloud today. Good conditions for meditating. Okay, there's a question there already, I think. So, is the vast sense of awareness still a fabricated state? If so, how should we practice to fabricate less and glimpse the deathless? Good question. Yeah, good question. It can be fabricated. So we have to be aware when it's simply a fabrication, when we're simply fabricating it. And I think the best way to decipher that so that we're not fooling ourselves, that's how a lot of people become deluded, by thinking they're enlightened, because they're just fabricating this idea. And then, when you have an idea of something, like if you think of an ocean, beach, if you just think of that, it feels good, doesn't it? But you're not actually at the ocean. You're just holding the image in the mind. And because that image is quite strong and you might be practicing imagining that, you suddenly feel relaxed, warm, open, as if you were at the ocean, and And people do this technique, don't they, in things like sports psychology, because we know it does have an effect on the body and the way we feel. But the thing about reality is that you can't really, it doesn't work in the same way. You can, if you just fabricate a sense of awareness or enlightenment, you're still within the same realm, aren't you, of this phenomenal world. And then reality or enlightenment becomes just another experience, albeit a very pleasant experience, perhaps, one in which the person feels all powerful and all knowing. But it's still just it's a big delusion, and that's why there's a lot of delusion out there. And you see people becoming, fake gurus and then leading lots of fake people, or because they believe they're telling the truth. They might even exude that sense of charisma, or because they believe it. So this is a big trap, and it's a good question to ask. So how do we know if we're just simply fabricating this notion of awareness, or even, to the full extent of being enlightened? Thought will give it away. You have to really be able to see clearly that it's simply a thought, just another thought. And the tricky thing is, it's often not a very gross thought. It's just a very subtle thought, but it's still within the mind fabricating this notion. So it's not easy to, and only the person themselves, or fully enlightened Buddha perhaps, can see into that person's mind and know that they're fabricating it. And there's a well-known story in the Dzogchen tradition. Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, if you follow the channel and listen to some of the Dzogchen masters, he was a great Dzogchen master. He has 3 sons who teach in different areas, different ways. One of them's Sokni Rinpoche, Choki Rinpoche, and Mingo Rinpoche. Anyway, the dad was Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, and he amazing teacher, and please listen to some of the readings of his wisdom on my channel, or listen to him directly. There's a few up on YouTube with translations. And there was an Advaita practitioner, I think, who had fabricated this sense of, being finished, and had kind of convinced herself that she didn't have any more thoughts. She was free in a non-conceptual state of bliss, and permanently abiding in awareness. And for some reason, I don't know how it happened, she went to see Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, and her friends were saying, oh, she doesn't have any thoughts anymore. And she's like, yeah, I don't have any thoughts anymore. And he's going, really? And yeah, and I'm just constantly abiding in this state of awareness. And he goes, really? Okay, well, let's just sit here for a moment and in silence, and just see, when a thought might arise. So they all sit there in silence. And of course, she starts to realize, she starts to feel quite uncomfortable. She's realizing these thoughts are coming up. Obviously, someone challenges you like that, and it's like, don't think of the elephant in the room, right? So she realizes it's just been a big fabrication, and she's full of thoughts, and she might have been able to pacify them in a very subtle way, but it was still a thought. So this notion of her experience of awareness, which is undying, unborn, all those things, wonderful words, she just saw, that sounds wonderful, and she attached to them, fabricated them, created a certain sense of, what would you say, a certain vibe within herself, and subtly attached to it, but it wasn't the real deal. because so much of perhaps her behavior and her way of being was simply being was simply unnatural, forced. And when people do go around saying that, I'm in this constantly blissful state, and that, you can almost bet your bottom dollar that they're just deluded. Because one who is really in that state's not going around saying, I am anything. If there's an I wanting to talk about themselves and brag about their attainments and make sure everybody knows about it, put videos up and I am this, I am that, I've attained this, I know this. It's that fabrication that you're obviously conscious of, John, yourself, which is great. The fact that you're aware that at times awareness can simply be fabricated. Authentic, true awareness, the best example obviously is the masters, who are really grounded in that, but also little children. I think perhaps we can observe them because you see how natural it is that I'm not saying that they have they're as deluded as the next person, but the naturalness of this state of a young child, you can see the naturalness of awareness. Things come and go. They don't hang on in the same way that we do as we get older and create more and more of a concrete sense of self. As thought becomes more dense, concretized, little children are just in this open state of awareness and things are flowing through, and it's natural. But they're not going, oh, look, Mummy, I'm aware. I'm free and open and natural and happy. They just are that. So, yeah, when it's not fabricated, it's natural, it's not egocentric, and it's certainly not someone telling you about how wonderfully aware they are, or even you telling yourself, perhaps more importantly. But really, as I said, only you can know that for yourself, see what's going on within. Because it is quite easy to fool ourselves and to fool some people, gullible people, to fool others. Okay, so happy birthday to Eon's Vortex. A wonderful blessing to start your birthday. Pamela says, do I do any fasting? I do from time to time, but I also do, you'd say, a daily fasting, because in this tradition, the Theravadan forest tradition, we just eat one main meal. Well, I have a light breakfast at about 7, and then we have one meal a day. And then after that time, we generally don't eat anything, although there are medicinal allowances. So, from about 12 or 1 till breakfast the next day, it's kind of pretty much a daily fast, but we can eat some things allowables, like, I won't go into it, it's part of this tradition, but what the Buddha allowed as medicinal requirements, just, particularly if monastics were out doing a lot of walking or teaching and they just needed an energy and boost in the afternoon, or if they were unwell, so they could have some sort of drinks, etc. Anyway, but fasting is good. Healthy for the body, healthy for the mind, and everything in moderation, huh? So, I think fasting's become a bit of a thing, a bit trendy. And people always go to extremes on these things and make it a thing, make it a trend. So we have to be just sensible, start small. Don't pick that up as another achievement or spiritual milestone, just balance. Okay, so Dillis is saying, some bliss is spiritual and some pleasure is worldly. The Buddha said not to be afraid of spiritual bliss. Not to be afraid of it and to utilize it with wisdom. And then you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid of anything, really. You just have to wake up. So Scotland, cold and windy in Scotland. I thought it was summer over there. Okay. Eric says, I see people teaching the essence of non-duality on YouTube. However, I see it becomes a conceptual form of philosophy. Isn't that paradoxical to our true nature? We can only point to it. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying in that last response about fabrication. A lot of the stuff out there on non-duality, I've seen a bit of it. It's incredibly conceptual, and it makes people feel smart, that they understand it. And then they get into discussions and make themselves feel, convince themselves that they understand the truth and that they are the truth, and it's all just can be done by talking. But that's it's not about understanding it just conceptually. We start that way. This is why I read the Master's words. It gives you, it's the finger pointing to the moon, and it's giving you a framework and understanding. But of course, everything has to come back to your own experience. And if we don't apply it directly to our own experience in the manner of, meditating, looking at our own minds and really unraveling it. And that's what, in that meditation, I was talking about the Dharma, the truth, one of the 3 characteristics of existence that the Buddha taught was that everything that arises passes away. Now, you might get that, you'll get that, and then you go, oh yeah, I get the truth of impermanence, I understand it, yep. And then you convince yourself that you really understand the Dharma, but you haven't really seen it directly. Now, that to explain how to see it directly is impossible, or what even it. You have to see it directly, and when it's seen directly in the depth of meditative inquiry or in a moment of illumination, it's chalk and cheese in terms of conceptual understanding. And the difference is that when one sees it directly, it uproots what's called the asavas, the outflowings, the defilements. It uproots it. So you could say, when you see it directly, it deeply transforms your understanding of truth. Now, in the suttas, when the Buddha gave his first sermon on the 4 Noble Truths, and to the 5 disciples, when he basically taught that everything that arises passes away. And one disciple really got it, Kondanya, and the Buddha knew with his all-knowing mind, and he said, Kondanya knows. Now, the others probably thought, yeah, that's true, but then they were thinking about it intellectually, but actually Kondanya saw it directly, and because Kondanya saw it directly, he became what is called, a Sotapanna, right? He entered the stream of knowing. So it's a vast difference between conceptual forms of knowing and philosophy and seeing the truth, the Dharma, directly. So thanks, Eric, for that question, which ties in with the original one. I think it's an important one. So learn, but just see if you're getting just caught up in ideas all the time. And, if you are, just stop listening and start practicing more. Just one more point on that, because there's different ways to listen too. We were trained in this tradition that when you listen to the Dharma, you're not listening from here. You listen. You might just be in meditation and listening to the words that the teacher is pointing to, and it enters here, right? It enters deeply. So that too is something to investigate. Are you just listening intellectually and arguing with the speaker and then congratulating yourself for being so clever, and then comparing and contrasting like the way we were trained at school to think? Or are you really just open and empty and allowing the Dharma to go in, and you see it within your own heart, that becomes transformational. And that is where the Dharma is. Okay. Someone's asking, is a soul also a program? I'm not sure what a program is, but as a concept, maybe is what you're talking. It's another concept, a soul, and it's used in different traditions differently. But we can just, if it's just talked about as some permanent, unchanging entity, then that's just certainly what the Buddha said is not truth. But often some teachers use it as a way just to talk about the heart within the essence. So they're not saying it's a permanent entity, but it's just the essence, the empty essence too. But I tend to avoid that word. Well, obviously within Buddhism we avoid it because it either can lean towards eternalism, or people deny it. They end up leaning towards nihilism, the two extremes. So 0 Point Agape is saying, is this a simulation? Well, this video is a simulation. Do you mean life? Simulation. I don't know. You talk about it as a dream, but again, it's important not to kind of get on the bandwagon of conspiracy theories. Or I know some people are out there saying we're all in the matrix, and then they get all paranoid and think someone's controlling them. It's not like that at all. Just be natural and normal, and know that there's two truths going on here. There's the relative and the absolute, and that's why in the especially within the Dzogchen tradition, they always acknowledge there's a relative truth. There is a human being here, feeling joys and sorrows, having experiences, having relationships, falling in love, feeling the grief of loss, having human emotions. So we are human beings. But at the fundamental level, it's the whole fabric of reality is an empty essence. But then that's when people start to pick it up as an idea and then try and figure it out. Just be a human being and just start to learn the truth. Okay? Okay, thank you, Kari. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Patience. Thank you for mentioning patience during the meditation. So, yes, the Buddha said, Kanti parami. So, patience is the highest virtue. That's one I've always, because I wasn't a very patient person. I think I'm more patient now. I think there's more patience, especially as you get older. Although that's not always true, is it? People can get grumpy as they get older and impatient. But anyway, because it has been a focus of mine, and because it is highlighted as one of the most important paramis, spiritual qualities, I've really had to look at my impatience and apply that not just in meditation, but in all aspects of life. And it's, when we develop patience with things that arise and pass away, and all our reactions and reactivity, it makes a huge difference to our lives. And I think our conditioning in the West, we are very impatient people. We want things now. Tomorrow, we want it today, not tomorrow. We want it, and it's getting worse with the internet, with technology. Everything's at our fingertips. So we don't like waiting for things. We want enlightenment now. We want the instant enlightenment through the easiest method, It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And so people do get very frustrated with meditation and give up because it's not as instant as they hoped. Can't just take a pill, push a button. But if we really deepen our patience, it will transform everything. Sally says, despite seeing the truth, clinging and aversion within me still continues. Yes, it's as natural and spontaneous as breathing and blinking. ? Yes. So the truth of clinging and aversion is part of seeing that too. It's not that, oh, I've seen the truth of arising and passing, therefore everything's going to stop and I'm not going to cling or have negativity. That's not how it works. It's seeing that this stuff is part of the conditioned realm and it will still come up. And they say even in one who is fully enlightened, some of this old karma and reactivity can still come up. It's part of the personality part of the karmic stream. The difference is they're no longer identified with it. It doesn't stick. It's like Teflon, No, sorry, it's the opposite of Teflon, isn't it? Is it? What's Teflon? It's when no, nothing sticks to Teflon. Sorry. What's the other one when you... anyway, forget that metaphor. It's like water off a duck's back. Nothing sticks. So there's no identification with any of this stuff anymore. So, Sally, when you see the truth, these things will still arise. But if you actually stop being fooled by them, then you will notice that they will lessen. That's the other thing. They will definitely lessen and only appear, in one who is fully realized very rarely. And nothing sticks anymore. There's no me identifying with it. Just let me scrub my eye. Okie doke. If this is all an illusion and the personality is just a construct, what is the point of living, of going through this painful experience? Well, I guess the point is to wake up to the illusion. And see how we construct meaning all the time, and we have to try and figure out what's the point and how did this happen, rather than this is the way it is. There is suffering. This is what the Buddha said. There is suffering. There is the path. There's the end of suffering. I'm jumping ahead. There's the cause of suffering. There's the end of suffering, and there's a path leading out. He didn't say, now there's suffering. Wonder why we suffer. What's the point of suffering? And, why did we come into this world? Now, if he said that, everyone would just be going, trying to figure it out. He didn't. He just said, yes, there is suffering in this experience. There's both pleasure and pain in this experience. Some of us have more pleasure. Some of us have more pain. We generally have a mix of both, and we have a mix of both forms of karma. And then he said, look for the cause of it. When you see the cause of it, then, and with truth and wisdom, then it comes to an end, and then you walk on the path to the end of all suffering. That's what it comes down to. So let go of trying to figure out how the arrow got in you and just pull it out. That was another metaphor. He encouraged people not to start to create all these philosophies and metaphysics around it. Just come to the end of suffering and see where it starts. So Sally's saying, all I can do is observe it, and that's exactly right. So just know it for what it is. And as you observe, you'll see how this suffering comes to be. And it comes to be through ignorance, through not understanding. How we keep creating a sense of me and splitting things me and you and the world. Okay, so Seal and Shima has asked down below, how is it possible to watch everything unfold like a dream, a movie, without becoming disassociated, at least a bit? I'm asking as a person with PTSD and the disassociated states that come with it. Yeah, I think this phenomena of PTSD is actually a way of coping with very traumatic, painful experiences. It's like if a little child is being abused or raped, then there's something within that being that knows this is too much, this is too painful, so they need to split, and it's actually quite a good coping mechanism that we can, if it's just too overwhelming. I mean, that's why people pass out sometimes when things are just too painful or they're grief stricken or something. It's like a coping mechanism for that time. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, the flight and fight response. And animals do that too. Some animals just fall down, pretend dead when they're being attacked, and others will run for their lives. The difference is that, I guess, if we do that all the time, or we're stuck in that very painful experience, and those responses inform all our relationships because we're just trapped in this armor of defense and fear, then it's not healthy. So, I can't talk at length about that. That's something that there are specialist counselors, therapists who work directly with people who have experienced traumatic experiences and have what was called this disorder. But it is possible, just sort of put aside the deep trauma. I guess life is a deep trauma to some extent anyway. It's tricky to just stay watching without cutting off. And that's why in that meditation I did say, keep your heart open if you can, so that we stay connected and grounded. It's kind of difficult to really explain what that's like. You have to feel it for yourself. And then I guess a bit like I talked about fabrication, you just have to keep watching to see, am I just cutting off here? Am I just fabricating something? Both of those things can happen. And keep being really honest with yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, other people tend to be and will give you feedback, and will say, I'm not feeling the connection, or there's just a wall there, or you start saying things that are very repetitive and, what's the word? I can't think, but just using a lot of platitudes, whether in spirituality or in your relationships. Oh, there's no one here, it doesn't matter. There's no self, so what does it? Those sort of things that people say. All is empty, blah, blah, blah. And it's not coming from the heart, it's coming from the head, and it's often used as a defense mechanism. And like you say, you become disassociated as a way of coping with life, and then you can pick up spirituality as a coping mechanism to just split, particularly notions of non-self or non-duality. And you can go the other extreme, say all is one, and I am all, and I love you all, and then you just deny any of the evil in the world or the suffering. So, this is what we do, isn't it? But at the same time, it's okay. We have to go down these wrong paths in order to learn that there's these wrong paths and obstacles, and then we learn from them. And that's why mistakes are kind of valuable. And we come back to the middle way and we realize, geez, I've just been disassociating. I'm just on a trip, walking around saying it's all a dream, so that I don't have to feel the pain. Okay. The thing is, we have to feel the pain because we are humans, but we don't have to identify with it. It's the identification and running with it that's the problem. It's the feeling of grief when your father dies, when your mother dies, is very human. And it actually, if you willingly rest into it and feel it, it can open your heart and it can teach you so much, and you can feel love and compassion for all beings. If you just go, oh, there's no father, it's all just a concept, or it's all one, and it's okay, I don't have to feel sad. It's just another head trip, spiritual or otherwise. And we become disassociated. So I hope some of that made sense, and you can relate to both of it in terms of fabricating awareness or fabricating our experience. Okay. I'm looking for questions, but there's maybe if you can, I don't want to spoil the party, but if it makes it a little hard if you start chatting to each other on the chat thread, because then I can't find the chats. I can't find the questions. And this thing's playing up. What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? Hang on a sec, folks. There's technical issues going on here. Okay. Alistair is asking, how can I tell if I am progressing on the spiritual path? The more conditioning that is revealed, the more disheartened I tend to feel. Yeah. If you can just turn that attitude around to, oh, great, I'm seeing more and more of this conditioning. And because you're seeing it, it means you are progressing. If you're seeing it with wisdom, not if you're just going, or if you're going, oh, that's not, or if you're not wanting to see it, that's not true. I think I've said this many times. Ajahn Chah used to say, whatever is annoying you, whatever is irritating you, that is your best teacher. So it's good when these things come and you see your reactivity. This is your Dharma learning. This is what's being revealed. And slowly, if you stick with it, you'll also start to see the opposite, that you suddenly are less reactive. You feel more compassion. You're more generous. You're more patient. You'll see, and it might just come in tiny little increments, but they're signs of spiritual progress. You can have wonderful, blissful experiences, which can also be a sign of progress, but they're not the only sign. And not everybody has them, right? And it's not the only sign. The other things that are a little less glamorous might just be you're more patient. You're letting go of striving. You're giving more of your time to others. So if you start to see there's less of you there, that's more of a sign of spiritual progress than if you're just blissing out in jhanas often. I don't want to get into arguments with people who think that that's the only sign of progress. It's certain people have those proclivities and capacities, but not everyone does. And for some, it's a very humble, simple path of just letting go and being more kind, open, and wise. I think probably the most important thing that you should see developing is wisdom. And wisdom comes when you look clearly at that which isn't real. the false, the conditioning, and you see that with wisdom. So you can just shift your attitude here, Alistair, to saying to yourself, this is good. I'm starting to see the false, the conditioning. And it's being revealed to me because I'm giving it space. If you just go frenetically in life and fooled by anything, it's very hard to see, the falsehoods. And when you're willing to stop and be honest and look, then that's when the yucky stuff comes up. And people think, I'm not making progress, I feel worse. It's like, no, it's the opposite. You're making progress because, you're clearing out the gunk. You can't, it's like someone said, when you fast, you feel awful for a while, and, you go to the toilet and you're clearing it all out. And then, gosh, the next day or two, however long you fast for, you feel fantastic. But you can't feel fantastic unless you clear out some of the toxins. It's the same thing. So be happy. It's good. You're starting to see through all this stuff and wake up to it, and that is progress. I'm not sure if that's a question underneath you by the traveller, but I think how can we achieve something that has always been there? Yeah, it's also a statement. Yeah, you don't achieve it, you just realize it or recognize it because it's occluded, it's covered up. I'm having a little trouble with the question below. Oh, no, I see you're responding to someone. Okay, I'll just ignore that. Where are we? Velcro, thank you. Velcro sticks, Teflon doesn't stick. Thank you for that. I knew there was something you were correcting me. That's great. I've just lost my place. Because you know what's happening too, folks? You're confusing me. Stop talking to each other, and then I can find the questions. You have to create a separate chat room if you want to go and chat to each other. Yeah, so just if you can just leave it or send someone a DM if that's possible. So I'd love to chat. Caramba. Okay. I found a question. This may not be relevant, but I recently experienced what felt like something channeling through me. The words didn't seem to come from me. Can you help me to process this? I'm not sure of the details, so it's, but, often when I'm reading my, the words of the masters, it really does feel like they're not coming. It's not me doing it. It's just the wisdom is because they're so steeped in wisdom that they do just come through in their own powerful way. But it's also, this is recognizing that there is no individual me. And I'm talking now, which me is it coming from? It's just the words are coming. I'm not thinking about them. They're just coming in response to this. So it's just a spontaneous response to questions, but I can't find the me that's talking, right? It's just talking. Obviously, there's some training in talking, conditioned ways that I talk. I have an accent that I picked up from a young age, but there's not some entity in there that is me talking. It's just talking. So you've got to recognize you're channeling all the time. You're channeling this idea of yourself. And then, yeah, maybe there's other energies that can come through from time to time. But it's good to even forget about them and just recognize that you're actually just a channel all the time. You're just energy talking. There's no particular unchanging, fixed entity that is you talking. Huh? Okay, someone's got a chocolate addiction. Sorry about that. Yes, we shall pray for your stupid addiction. It's not just chocolate, yeah. You met a monk once and he helped you stop smoking without saying anything. That was slick. Okay. So obviously your addiction to chocolate is causing you a lot of suffering and you're binging. Just watch that. See, look at start to just observe when the desire comes up, the desire mind, and how, having that desire itself is suffering. And then binging on it is suffering. And then feeling the effects of eating too much chocolate is suffering. Little kids do that and they go, oh, I feel sick. But also, just some compassion for yourself too, that there is suffering here. So yeah, again, I'm kind of fishing through all the different conversations going on, looking for a question. So Robert and Sharon, who I know you're in Australia, in Brisbane or Blue Mountains, can't remember. Are you doing the workshops this year as you did last year? If so, could they be in the New South Wales school holidays? Well, I'm not sure which workshops you're meaning. Whether it was the online meditation or day meditation or the ones that drog me. And I don't even know when the New South Wales school holidays are. Just, yeah. How feasible is it to realize the self without living a monastic life? Well, it's very feasible. Many people have done that, Look at Nisargadatta. I mean, he was a very rare being, but and he lived a very simple life. I think, you don't have to take the robes, but I think the monastic way of life is just, the way the Buddha set it up. It wasn't particularly institutionalized in his day. It was simply someone just going forth into the homeless life and dropping all the burdens of responsibility to live a simple life. And these days we have the capacity, not everyone, and I, my heart goes out to people who are really tied to jobs and poverty and mortgages. But it is possible for some people to live independently and simply, and just live very frugally and devote a lot of time to practice. So the principles of a monastic life in this day and age can be done. I think in the Buddha's time, it was very much about family and familial responsibilities and in-laws and all that sort of stuff. So it was very much revolved around family life, perhaps business, if you were part of that particular business class, or a lot of poverty, just striving to make ends meet. So a samana life, a homeless life, is just living on what is offered, which is what we do, and being willing and happy to not have much, just the four requisites of food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. And, in the modern life, we do have to pay bills and insurances and things like that. So it's a little bit more complicated, but you get the gist of it, just to live simply, to live with the principles. And that helps a lot to focus the mind and to not be so busy, not be so caught up in achieving and striving, ambition. And the mind, it affects the mind greatly when we live more simply. Okay, so Chris is asking, why is it hard to disengage from the idea of me? Mainly because of lifetimes of conditioning, Chris. It's whenever you develop a habit pattern, a bit like an addiction that someone talked about, or addicted to me, it's hard to break it. So it takes practice and it takes patience. And it takes being willing to stick with it. You're not going to break an addiction to me overnight with some magic pill. And those who seem to, like, say, the Ramana Maharshis, it's not that it happened in a vacuum. He'd been practicing, and he said this himself, he'd been practicing spiritual practices and disciplines and austerities for lifetimes. It just, the fruit dropped when he was 16. But people think, oh, it happened to him at 16. Why am I 45, 50, and I've been practicing for years? Yeah, you might have just been only practicing for a few lifetimes. He might have been practicing for eons, and then the fruit dropped. It takes a long time to break dense conditioning, but we don't know. We don't know when the fruit is going to drop. So don't get fixated on it's taking too long or it's never going to happen. Just keep going. Don't look for results at that level. Even if you can start, if you want results as kind of encouragement, as inspiration, just say, am I being more patient? Am I being kinder? Am I being more generous? Just start with baby steps and see. And if you're doing stuff like that, you are disengaging from the idea of me, not being as self-centered, self-focused. So someone's asking, is it necessary to aim our awareness at an icon, such as the Buddha, Christ, Krishna, that represents the deeper truth in order to abide with that deeper truth? No, it's not necessary, but for some people it gives rise to a tremendous amount of faith, love, and devotion. If you don't have that, and that's why, people like the Buddha and Jesus Christ and Krishna, thank God they were here, and God, because not only did they teach, but their legacy of wisdom and love remains for us to be inspired by and to utilize that as a skillful means. And, those who do have a deep faith in Jesus Christ, and a wise one, I must add, because some of them have deep faith but not a lot of wisdom. So there's a lot of fundamentalism in religions. But if it's a deep faith which encompasses all beings, it can really help one quieten the mind, open the heart, and see the truth. If you're not inspired by any of these divine teachers, masters, then find something that does inspire you, because it is helpful, like a flower. It might be a cat, a kitty cat, a child. What these icons are doing, they're not just statues that you worship and believe every word they say and then become a fundamentalist anything. It's just simply to inspire us, and because sometimes we can get very dry in practice, can't we? Get very dry and complacent and bored. So when we turn our minds to these teachers, it enlivens us and makes it very, it's like flowering. So find something that does, and see how that can help you go deeper into the truth. So someone's asking how I decided to turn to monastic life. It's a bit of a long story. So I know we're running out of time, but this idea that I decided to turn to monastic life, or really monastic life turned to me, is perhaps more accurate. In a simple response, it just spoke to me, spoke to my heart, and was compelling me. me. Jasmine's asking about individual empowerments. I was wondering if receiving individual empowerments are the same as receiving tantric initiation. I don't know. It's not my tradition, so I can't really answer that. So I don't know if some of these are questions or just statements that people are sharing on the chat. So I'll just keep, going. Oh, there's the Velcro. Okay. So someone's asking, how plausible is it for a Westerner to travel overseas and live monastically? Well, they do it. People do it all the time, you know. If you go to a lot of monasteries in Thailand or Sri Lanka or India, especially up north and where the Tibetan diaspora are, there are many, many Westerners. But I don't have anywhere particular to recommend, and I wouldn't. I think just let yourself be drawn. If that's something that you're authentically going to do and want to do, things will fall into place. So I don't want to talk too much about my own. I know there's a few questions here about what inspired me to be a nun or to share the teachings. I can tell you a story, but it's perhaps not the truth anyway. But, you know, if you're really interested, on my community page on YouTube, there's the backstory of how this Wisdom of the Masters channel came to be. So that gives you a little snapshot of the process that happened. Little bit of the process. There's a lot more to it, but I chose to write that down so people could see the background. Nice to think of hummingbirds being an inspiration and a metaphor. Is it really possible for a country boy to break the cycle of death and rebirth? Not only is it possible, it's more feasible for a country boy to break the cycle of death and rebirth. And masters often say that the less educated that people are, the more progress they make. So if your mind is simple, your life is simple, your heart is open, and there's not as much education sometimes or thinking and I know it all. It's like the beginner's mind. It's empty and open. So, of course, it's possible. Ajahn Chah was a simple farmer, uneducated. A lot of the great masters were very uneducated. I mean, Ramana didn't go to school after 15, 16, did he? Nisargadatta was a simple beedi seller in a Mumbai slum. It's not, you don't see a lot of professors becoming enlightened masters. Often they're very simple. So if you're really a country boy, you've been blessed. Okay. There's more answers and reflections. So it's coming to 8:30. So nature is calling. So I'm going to leave the session here now and wish you all the best and wish you all to be country boys and girls. Simple. Stop arguing with yourself and with each other, and just recognize that this conceptual mind, which we're going to take into all our spiritual practices, and it seems to be the theme of today's Q&A, was about people asking about fabricating and conceptualizing experience and disassociating. It's a good thing that's come up. We see it in real life. So the encouragement is to let go of the arrogant mind and the intellect that always wants to think it knows, think it's got it, and tell everybody else how it is too. I'm including myself in this. I'm not just saying everyone out there. So I shut up now, okay? I shut up now because I've said enough. Enough is enough. Words are never going to get you there. Utilize the framework, the teachings, but take them to heart. If you don't take them to heart and shut up, internally, externally, there's no real progress is going to happen. You're just going to convince yourself you're really smart, and you're going to make sure you tell everybody how enlightened you are. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to be a country girl for the day. Go for a walk in nature. Watch my breath. Watch the conditioning that comes up. And celebrate that, whoever was saying that before. Oh, look, this stuff is coming up to clear away. And the only fast I'm going to do today is fasting of my thinking. And that's the real fasting that needs to happen. Take a break from gulping down all these thoughts and concepts. We're ingesting way too much chatter, social media, ideas. We're gorging on this stuff to the extent that it's turning the world mad. All right? So let's fast and be like the birds and shut up. Okay, I say that in a caring, sharing way. We all shut up. I bless you to shut up. I shut up. Goodbye, everybody. And we'll let you know on the channel when the next live stream is. And we wish Jatindriya much health, joy, and rejoice in her giving nature, because she's been doing a lot of giving. She's a very generous, very, very generous, compassionate person, and perhaps been doing a little bit too much lately. So she needs a break. So wishing you all well, and see you again sometime. Ciao, ciao.